Oh my goodness. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Another interview with another beautiful young Black woman.
Oh, young. I like that.
Why not? Listen, why say, oh, why think that way? I mean, we're gonna age automatically. So just let time and life take us there. But
Okay.
tonight or this evening, whatever you want to call it, I want to have Athea. I'm
hmm
very bad with my TH. Athea, tell you a little bit about herself. One of my purpose for doing this interview with these beautiful women I've been doing over the past couple of months is just to share that success comes in different ways.
hmm
Success doesn't necessarily mean a VIP at JP Morgan, a VIP at, you know, Aetna, I think they're,
hmm
or any type of big organization, but success comes within your local organization and the work is more closer to the people within the community.
hmm
And so success come differently. So please tell us all about you and your journey.
Oh, wow. So Althea Marshall Brooks, born and raised in the city of Waterbury. This journey, I guess, of, community engagement and really uh kind of leaving things better than I find them, if that's the way to say it, is that it's not a job for me, but it's more of a calling. I see the work that I do in every position that I hold as ministry in many ways.
Mhm.
Um, so the work that's happening with Bridge to Success and specifically around day 43 is really about the crisis of Black women and birthers, dying at a rate globally higher than their other racial and ethnic counterparts. This is a professional project, but it's very much a personal and a passion project. Um, so I mean, who my work is who I am, and who I am is my work. That's probably the best way I
Oh,
can say it.
so tell us, when did you decide to take that path and what made you decide to be in that organization? Is that organization you birthed or you
Hmm,
tell me how that organization came about or how you came about to be a part of that organization?
that's a good question. So, no, the organization was established in 2010 as the state's first Cradle to Career initiative. It was pretty much like an outcry of youth leaders who were part of the city's Youth Policy Prevention Council, who found themselves showing up in similar spaces at different meetings throughout the city, having the same conversation, but in different spaces. And there was a decision to say, we need to change our approach to addressing these issues. And with an approach, I'm going to name it kind of silo busting, doing things in isolation, and then taking on more of a collective impact approach to it, really working more collaboratively and collectively to address the issue. I think the key piece, though, is really bringing the community into the conversation in a way that I think previously it was a lot of those who were in leadership positions, heading up organizations, or an elective office or city government. And the approach to really take on this desire to address things from a collective impact approach ensures the voice of the community at the table, and a partner in decision making. So that's how Bridge to Success came about. So it's been around since 2010. Um, the opportunity came to me while I was working in New Haven at New Haven Public Schools. I was the director of coordinated school health for the district, doing work around health and well-being for students, families, communities, and educators.
Mhm.
Really enjoyed the work. Was funded through state dollars through the alliance districts, of which New Haven was one. The opportunity at Waterbury Bridge to Success was brought to my attention, that they were having a transition in leadership and that there was some real intention around bringing someone on who knew the city well enough and was representative of who the city was. And so that's how I found out about the position and interviewed and applied for it and was selected in fall of 2017. So it's been just about 6 years now. Yeah.
Congratulations. So that's
Thank
very
you.
interesting. So let's talk about your position prior to that, because I do see a connection based on the
hmm
things you like to do, community based, serving
I do.
people well and helping. So just let's go back a little bit. If you don't mind telling me, did you what's your major and did you go to college? I'm assuming you went to college.
I did.
You're gonna validate
Um,
for me.
no, that's a great question. So I would say all the positions I've held in some way, shape, or form aligns with one. My mom was a person very involved in the city of Waterbury with the Black Democratic Town Committee. She served on, she was that mom on the block that if there was an issue with a pothole in the street, if the sidewalk wasn't together, she was calling downtown and saying, y'all need to come up here and fix this. She was she was that mom. Waterbury has something that they celebrate called the old school, and she was a part of a group of individuals who was doing that some years ago at what was previously in a settlement house in the city of Waterbury, the Q House. It was one of the first settlement houses in the city of Waterbury, and they would host the event there at the Q House. So I come from that stock. So the work I have always done, whether it was working in city government, I had the privilege of working in City Hall with Mayor John DeStefano, who, as you know, is the longest serving mayor for the city of New Haven, and really had, the bug really to bring folks together, leveraging I guess I would say the position of city government to really convene people around issues, and had the opportunity to deal with issues around homelessness, chronic homelessness, issues around health and well-being of residents. And that work that I ended up doing at New Haven Public Schools started while being the community services administrator for the city of New Haven. That was preceded by leading the city's empowerment zone initiative, which focused on the city's 6 most distressed communities at that time. It had identified with issues around blight, economic flight at the time, and the work of the empowerment zone initiative was really to help to restore that. We did that through workforce development. We did it through housing and home ownership partnerships, brownfield remediation, partnerships with the community college, and also things around youth employment and youth workforce development opportunities. So that's kind of always been the space that I was in, and my education supported that. I went to the University of Connecticut in Storrs as a Day of Pride scholar at UConn, and I graduated from the School of Family Studies. I'm not going to say what year.
Okay, listen, you're young and beautiful. That's all that counts.
Yeah, so I received my bachelor's from UConn. Then I went on to Southern to get my master's of science in sociology from Southern Connecticut State University, and then followed that with the blessing of an opportunity to attend Yale Divinity School. So I received my master's of divinity from Yale University following my master's in sociology. So that's been my path. The work that I do, I see very much as ministry. It's always about leaving things better than you find them, and finding a way to sustain that investment, whether via human capital or financial capital, so that the work continues and the transformation doesn't end right with my time or term at a particular organization.
Wow. I'm listening to you and I'm like, wow, your journey and your family background and everything just seemed to align perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And as I look at your transition from position to position, it grows.
Yeah.
It grows as far as your capability.
Mm. Mm.
You assist the mayor, and then your mom rose in just, I'm sure as a child, we observe our parents and we emulate in different ways, but the same message they're trying to communicate. But
Absolutely.
then take that as you went from school to now the community.
Mm-hmm.
You're teaching.
Yep.
You're doing what your mom is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're taking the information from assisting the mayor in the political arena.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all your education background supports that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there and seeing all the connection, and I don't know if you planned it, but it seemed like everything just flowed so nicely in the position you are. I would think that's such a beautiful transition to where you are today, and the growth and the position and power you have. I'm not sure if you realize the power you have in your hand.
I am thankful that things have come full circle and I'm back home. I do recognize it as a position of power and influence, but I do believe, scripture says, I knew you before you were formed
Mhm.
in your mother's womb. I think all things work together for the good. I think this has just been a part of God's plan always. And so that's what landed me here. But I have to say, I grew up at a time in Waterbury where Black excellence wasn't hard to find. At the age of around 12,
Mhm.
I did support who's now Judge Maurice Mosley in
Mhm.
his run for state rep at the time for the 72nd district. So kind of, grassroots organizing was something I was exposed to at a very young age by him, and then had the opportunity. He brought me back shortly after graduating undergrad to support the establishment of Granville Academy, which is, many, I mean, I don't even want to talk about how long ago. It's been around several decades and helped to cultivate, right, the next generation of leaders who are now actually showing up back in the city of Waterbury, making an impact. And to be a part of that early on is just huge. But I wasn't sure of, people to emulate who demonstrated excellence and the ability and capacity to make change. And that really has been, the fuel for the fact that coming back to Waterbury, that not that it's been easy. I'm not going to say this, sitting in the seat has been easy, and saying that, Black and brown kids have the right to feel that they have purpose and intent, that they too can achieve success, that they too embody excellence, and that they too should be a priority. That hasn't been an easy conversation. And in many ways, I have to say, early on grieved me a bit
Mhm.
because of the privilege I had. I had a Black principal when I was in elementary
Wow.
school. I had Black teachers in my middle school. There were several in my middle school. When I think about Mr. Brown, he was a vice principal, Mr. McKinney, Miss Gilliam, the gym teachers, Miss Cherry and Miss Gibson, all in one middle school. So there was no shortage of people who look like me being in spaces where I was learning and showing me the possibilities and pouring into me. So, bringing all of that with me, right? Carrying that from those whose shoulders I stand on, and bringing that into the work that we're doing now helps me to push through when those hard conversations have to be had, when you have to speak truth to power, to know that there's someone who did it for me, and I'm beholden to them to do it for the generation who's coming up now.
Okay, great. I love that. One question I want to ask you, you're in a political arena. I would consider advocate, community, political arena, all that space kind of commingled together.
Mhm.
So how difficult would you say for a person, a woman of color or brown skin, blacks, to be in that space, to have to advocate when that space is majorly held by white male?
It can be challenging. Sometimes you're a voice in the room that, is not always heard for a variety, a number of isms I could bring up, right? Which we can name here if we need to. Um, but again, it's been a growth process. But I think one of the things I've always armed me with myself with is the story. Like, what is the story that I have to tell? And mostly at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. And so data is something that is very important to me in all the positions I've had, that I've always carried with me. And then equating those numbers in some way to some particular either numerical value, financial value, the impact on human capital, in some way, shape, or form, we have to do that. And sadly, that's kind of helps to validate me being in the room in some ways. But I think, because if you ever met my mother, you probably would know why. I think I've always felt like I could say, speak my truth. It's not always received, but I've always felt like I could speak my truth. But I always try to back it up with facts, because unfortunately, for some of us, we can't just say something and it's received or believed. Somehow we have to always validate what we say and what our truths are, sadly, because we're people of color, and sometimes our position and our voice is minimized, marginalized. in ways are not seen as valid in a lot of spaces, especially majority white spaces at times, because you don't always have allies or co-conspirators in those spaces.
I agree with you 100%. Working in corporate America, I have that experience that, and
Yeah.
work in government, semi-government agency. So
Mhm.
one question I would like to ask you, share, what would you tell a young, because what you have explained, I'm gonna go back a little bit, what you have explained is not just in your space, but almost any space where you have to, as a woman, number one, and then a woman of color, number two, and then when you have a voice that you are speaking for other people and you're there on the behalf of others.
Yeah.
How do you help express this to a younger person who decide to go in a position like that or in a space like that? Not just a position, because you could be in corporate America trying to move up the ladder and you're going to be confronting, and that sounds too strong. You can be in a space where the majority is not going to be the same sex or the same color.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm listening to you, and you have found a way to navigate in that space. And it has been successful. I'm sure you had your ups and downs. Give some insight to someone who wants to be in a space, not by choice, but based on their journey and what they need to do. That space is there and they have to enter it.
You know, that's a very good question. And it's you know, immediately when you said that, you know, just thinking about early on in my career, the necessity to code switch, right? I couldn't come in and just be Althea, you know, Lil and Salty's daughter, right?
Mhm.
Because I would be dismissed. That's just the reality of it. And sadly, we were having some conversations here earlier in the office around the training that we're doing based on this publication we commissioned by Chimay Morales James called Let's Talk About Race, raising children with a positive racial and ethnic identity. And she's built out these sessions for us to really have these conversations with the community, with parents and caregivers. And, you know, sadly, as a young Black woman, having to recognize that who I was not going to be fully accepted, right? I had to possibly bring a different voice into the room and in order to be accepted or validated. I don't know if I would say that now. I think I've been blessed with the opportunity and position to open the door and provide opportunity for other young women who look like me. And two of them are in the room right now working. You can't see them, but two of them are in the room working right now. And what I find so interesting, we never question a space when everybody works there is white.
Mhm.
But the minute we afford the similar opportunity to people who look like us, it's like, oh, you know, people are literally shocked when they see the team of Bridge to Success. They're like, oh, your whole team looks like the community. Well, yeah, you know, they have talent and gifts too. um, and so I think those opportunities were given to me when I think back, you know, my first, you know, full-time job working, you know, the opportunity, the doors being opened, working at New Opportunities for Waterbury. And, you know, Dr. Gatling led that organization for many, many years, several decades, and having that opportunity and so on and so forth with other positions, that in that same way, it's my duty, to reach back as I reach forward.
Mhm.
Right. And give those same, we have to be willing to open those doors and literally have to say to funders and donors and local, state, and federal government that we are quality organizations doing impactful work with skilled, you know, competent individuals. And just because the space is all Black and brown doesn't mean it's less than. So I think the way I go about it is creating and helping the opportunity, providing the opportunity in the same way that I was given, and allowing the excellence and skills that's already within, these beautiful Black women who work here at Bridge to Success, and the beautiful young Black men and women of color to shine and just be there to provide the support and guidance along the way and mentoring in some ways. So, because that's what was done for me. And I think we've gotten away from that a bit in this pursuit of corporate America wealth and what we perceive as success.
Okay, so let me go back on that question a little bit. So what would you say to a young person who's watching this video who say, I want to move ahead in life, but I'm a little timid because the space,
Mm,
it can be scary, especially in today's climate. It can be a little scary when you want to move
yeah,
forward, but you look at the challenge.
yeah.
Is it worth it for success? Okay, you have to think about the purpose of moving forward. What do success look like for that person? Am I doing it for the money, the title, or am I doing it for the community? What the motivation? But whatever that motivation might be,
Yeah,
showing that, telling that person how to navigate in that space.
yeah,
It might not have the same support that you might have had. What would
yeah.
you suggest to them, since your organization do nurture that type of thing? So what would you tell that young person who's thinking about it?
I think one of the things I was blessed with was mentors. I've had,
Mhm.
mentors. There's someone they may, there's a lot of wisdom that our elders have. And I think I've been blessed with the opportunity to have those individuals' numbers in my mental Rolodex. We know what a Rolodex is. These young people don't know what a Rolodex is. And so I think, wisdom can be had in a variety of places. And I think we have to get back to this very village concept to really nurturing current and future talent, that there's wisdom to be had in our aunties and our uncles, also in, Mr. Jones who has the corner store. It could be the person who looks like you who might be, at the doctor's office. It might be a friend of your mom's or your auntie's. We have to begin to make sure as elders we're intentionally supporting young people and mentoring them in a way to help them navigate through these difficult positions, because we've all had to.
Yes.
We have not fully we're not fully liberated and free yet, right? Where we have access in the way others do. So we have to, it's required of us, right, to take that on. Whether they identify us or we identify them, that we're here to support them and push them and encourage them, to remind them that they have excellence in them, that they can do better, be better, and whatever it is that drives them. If it's money, okay, great.
Mhm.
But be your best self when you do it. Don't compromise who you are, right? Um, but I think that's what and they may not like it all the time. Like the two of them right here, they don't always like when I have to say some of the stuff that I have to say to them. They're making faces right now. But I know 10 years from now, the excellence and greatness I see in them, they'll say, oh, this is what she was talking about. And that's part of our job, is to really be that support. Sometimes when the younger generation doesn't always know they need it. You see something they don't see, but that's the wisdom we've gained, right? Because of living life. And we got to start sharing more of that. So restoring the village is so, so important to the success of future generations of leaders of color. Absolutely.
Wow, I love that. So basically, one of the things I'm pulling out, mentoring it's a great thing. Mentoring, and not just one. You can have more than one mentor.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
pull as much mentors, not just in the field you're going into, but just in your community, in your
That's it.
space. People at all background is important. It doesn't have to be
Absolutely.
someone, because everyone has a story that can help you move forward.
That's it.
Huh?
Absolutely.
So what would you consider success for you? What does success look like for you?
Um, they're looking at me right now. Um, Success is real simple for me, is that I've left something better than I found it, right? Whether that's in the case of what we're doing now, an increased voice of those who are impacted by systems that disenfranchise them, that has dehumanized them, or does not see value in their voice at the table. It's just leaving things better than I found it. If it's because I had the ability to resource something so that grassroots efforts could grow and help to transform the way students are educated, or parents are engaged, or healthcare sees women, Black women, in a different way. If I've been able to bring resources to the table so that one less person, one less Black woman or birther dies, then I've done my part. I think ultimately, for me, it's leaving things better than I found them. And that could be, it looks different in every seat I've sat in. And so I think that's just what drives me, is that I have to leave this better than I found it, but also put it in a position that someone else can run with it, and then they then are guided by what they think they need to add to the work.
Wow, I love that. So next question might be a little tricky.
Okay.
So if success is basically your interpersonal for success for what you feel you've accomplished, it doesn't based on the actual position. It's based on what you see in your mind and what you came to accomplish. So I like that. Some people, the main success is to get to this position, this particular company. I'm there, I'm the CEO. Wow, I've made it. For you, you look for new challenge. And each
I do.
challenge, you have a goal. And once you conquer that goal, you're good to go. So with that being said, do you see yourself moving on to another challenge in the future? And I'm not saying near, I'm just saying in the future.
I do. And I don't think it's a secret. Like, I think the team here knows that. I think that's the other thing, right? If we, again, talking about opening that door, going back to the previous comment I made, sometimes we stay in spots too long. We have to give the next generation the opportunity to take it and run with it. You know, God, that's why I believe has imparted wisdom and gifts and a vision for them to do some of the work, to continue to cultivate our communities and transform them into the places where families could move beyond existing and surviving into really getting back to thriving, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, there's something else on the other side of this, and it may not be far down the road, because I think you have to create those opportunities. And when we stay places way too long, we dry up those opportunities for young people who have gifts and talents to add to this work. And so, yeah, I'm excited about what's ahead. As I said at the beginning of this, my work is ministry for me. That's how I see it. I'm guided by, you know, the Gospel of Matthew that talks about what you've done unto the least of these, you've done unto me. And so really focused in and leaning into those spaces is what I hope the next thing God calls me to will allow me to do. So
I love that. I love that. So I figured that I'm listening to you. Okay, success is more personal within your spirit.
Absolutely.
It's not a building, it's not a structure, it's not a title.
No.
And I love that. So I remember saying you got a hard stop. So I'm paying attention.
No, this is good. I appreciate this, Alicia.
So I'm gonna wrap it up because I know you were a busy woman. And I appreciate your time. And I've learned in just few minutes that we have been speaking, I've learned a lot about you and just how you see things. But my last question.
Oh boy.
Do you consider yourself an activist?
Probably low key. I probably don't call myself that. Yeah, I mean, it's about getting into, as John Lewis said, the good trouble. When I first came here, one of the first things I said at my very first meeting was, unless we do this and center racial equity, and specifically the voices of Black and Latine youth and families, then I don't know why we're doing this work. We're focused on improving outcomes for them, and they're the majority of the individuals in the city, in our school district, and I don't know how we do it. And that was a hard pill, I think. I mean, I think people were surprised, but I think yeah, I'm trying to remember. What was your question? I just forgot that.
Sorry, but you were saying, like, no, do you consider yourself an activist?
Yes, and in that way, I think that was my moment of really, yeah, functioning as an activist at this table where I'm sitting right now, where I said that at my very first meeting, and it was rumblings in the room, and I didn't budge off of that, and again, use data that they had compiled, not me, that they had compiled to say, well, here in your report, Black and brown kids are saying they don't feel seen, affirmed, or heard in this city. So what are we going to do with this data? So it told the story for me and gave me what I needed to move forward with this agenda. And sadly, 2020 came and everybody woke up and said, oh, is this what you were talking about? Which was the unfortunate reality. So yeah, this work, I think, is activism. I think when you say, you know, time out for Black bodies being dehumanized, you know, in the way that they are, especially around the Day 43 work, is something that, yeah, requires a level of, you know, advocacy and activism. So I guess, yeah, low key, I'm an activist. I guess. You know, I'm not I mean, people qualify or define activists in very different ways. And I think we all have the ability to show up as activists in different ways. I don't think it's one thing. It's not just the person on the street with a sign. I've done that. I did the Black Lives Matters protest, walking down the street with my kids and my husband. I've done that too. But I think it's more than that. It's much more than that. I'm not in any way diminishing that, but I'm saying it's that and the work day to day, so.
I agree with you. I think advocacy goes together. And I
Absolutely.
think most people who are activists, they started somewhere. They
Yeah.
saw a need
Yep.
and they saw, let me start here.
Yep.
And they either stick with it or they move on from different situation to situation as they see that they can navigate. So you're doing just that.
Thank you.
So,
I'm
I
trying.
appreciate that. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
Thank you,
So
Miss Alicia.
thank you so much. So do you want to tell the audience a little bit about your service and your business and how it can benefit them and the community as well, and how to get to your place so they can get service or help or whatever? Please share that.
Absolutely. So the organization is Waterbury Bridge to Success. You can catch us on social media platforms at Waterbury BTS. That's the handle, I think they say. Is at Waterbury BTS. Our website is waterburybridgetosuccess.org. You can find more information about us. But as I said, we're a cradle to career initiative serving kids from 0 to 24 in the city of Waterbury through a variety of efforts through what we call our collaborative action networks. If you're interested in the outcomes of children from 0 to 5, we have our early care and education, what we call CAN, led by Chelsea Harris, you can get involved in. We have a positive youth development that's really working on youth activism in the city, currently working on a youth mental health campaign through our positive youth development work. Our college and career pathways is really about supporting students and youth in the city, not only for post-secondary going into college, but other career pathways that may really align with their talents and gifts and desires, where we're working with brick and mortar institutions from, UConn to Post, and to Naugatuck Valley Community College, our workforce board, Amazon, the school district, and Gear Up, and a variety of folks. But then most importantly, the work is undergirded by our Parents of Waterbury group, which is led by Jonte Gatling Marshall and a number of our other parent ambassadors to do work to really bring the voices of parents and caregivers to the table. And then our Let Youth Lead think tank is led by Brianna McCullough, to really ensure that the voice of young people is weaved through all of this work. And we have community volunteers who are part of those cans. And then our Day 43 work is kind of my personal passion project. So I'm in the mix of that in many ways. And we have a number of folks who we're working with around that. Ashanti Rivera, the Greater Waterbury chapter of the Links, Lynette Coleman from the American Heart Association, Dr. Marcia Tejeda Smith, Dr. Mark Albini, and a number of other folks. I'm sure I'm leaving some out, and please fault my head and not my heart for those who are watching this and I didn't say your name. But we have a great team here. Akia Callum is our deputy director. I'm going to forget somebody's name. Anika Callum works in our community impact work. Terrence Fulmore, Latoya Ireland, Yonique Hendricks, Hermie Ventura, Devin Eason, Anna Iterbides, Amari Brantley. Who am I forgetting? I said you guys already, right? And Dustin Green. That's our team right now. So if I forgot somebody, again, fault my head and not my heart. And we can't do this without the support of our community council, which is a group of committed individuals across the cradle to career continuum who really hold us up and support us in the work that we do.
Wow. Wow. One last thing to say.
Yes.
Do you think your organization and how it pulled together so many different resources, so many different agencies, so many different people within the community, would that be a perfect model to use in another location, another state, another city?
Absolutely. I think we've been blessed to have the support of public and private funding to support the work of Bridge to Success. And yes, I think it can be replicated, not necessarily duplicated. And I say replicated because it should be representative of that particular community and the people from it and the voices from it. And the way in which they may constitute or bring folks together around the table should be based on the needs, the wants, and desires for change, and who are critical pieces of that change to be at the table. But making sure that they have the voice of residents, youth, families, caregivers, leaders, both elected, volunteer advocates, activists, all at the table, providers and practitioners. But it will look different in each city, but it's definitely a model that can be replicated. It currently exists in 4 other cities in the state. Bridgeport has one called Bridgeport Prospers. Norwalk has Norwalk Acts. Stanford is Stanford Cradle to Career, and we recently added Danbury. So this work is happening throughout the state, and there's always opportunity for more growth in other cities and towns.
Thank you. And that all those agencies have someone like you in that position?
Yes, Stanford has Edith Presley, Jennifer Barahona leads Norwalk, Katarina Valos, I'm hoping I'm saying her name right, leads Bridgeport Prospers, and we're all a part of a national network called Strive Together. We're a group of organizations, about 70 across the country, working using a racial equity lens to improve outcomes for kids and families.
Wow. As we got towards the end, I got more information about you. And I thank you so much for your time and energy and really appreciate. I think you given me a new understanding of what
Oh,
you actually do and how it impact the community, hearing
okay.
how far your arm actually can reach and how it connect with other city, as you just mentioned. And I think that's very important. I think people need to know that and understand that. And I'm gonna let you go to do your other things. Ladies and gentlemen, this is called self-talk, and the purpose here is to talk. Talk about yourself and how you can actually make a difference in your community. Thank you, my dear.
Thank
We're
you so much, Miss Alicia. Glad